Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today I'm talking about Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go ahead and watch the show first before you watch this review. So Rings of Power is a TV show set in the world of Lord of the Rings. It's based on the appendices from the Lord of the Rings trilogy and some of the other writings of J.R.R. Tolkien. So as far as what I liked about the movie, overall, I thought the cast was pretty good. I liked Morfydd Clark as Galadriel, and she was actually in Saint Maud. She played Maud in Saint Maud. Robert Aramayo as Elrond, I thought was good. Owain Darthur as Durin, and Nazanin Boniadi as Bronwyn. She played Nora in How I Met Your Mother, which is funny because I'm looking at her going, I know her from somewhere. Yeah, they were all good. Overall, all of the cast was really good. I liked the accents and the performances and everything. The opening, the first couple minutes, they show young Galadriel. She's got this cool little paper kind of boat she's got floating, and it unfolds and everything, and then the kids destroy it. That was all good. I liked what they were going for there. I like the overall look. It very much looks like the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies. There's even a couple scenes, an early one with the Council of Elves that looks pretty much straight out of the movie, as far as I remember, at least. Costumes in this were all really good, really cool. They looked very appropriate and nice and fancy and very expensive, which the show overall looks very expensive. The sets all looked really good. You know, some of them, a fair amount of them may have been CGI. I couldn't really tell, but yeah, the entire world looks very cool, looks very much like Middle Earth, you know, very much like the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings Middle Earth that I wanted to see. It's still, I think, mostly filmed in New Zealand, and so it's all very familiar. I did like the sort of intro to the little Hobbit village or where the Hobbits were staying, the way everything kind of popped up. It reminded me a little bit of like the Ewok village in Star Wars or whatever. The music overall was really good. Bear McCreary did most of the music. I think they brought Howard Shore back to do the theme music. But yeah, Bear McCreary, he's great. Everything he does is always good. I love the music in this. Very much felt like the original scores, and it kind of fit in with everything else. The CGI in this I thought was overall really good. There's a battle sequence early on in the first episode where they show a dragon fighting an eagle or whatever they call them, and thought it looked great. It looked really cool. You know, that was one of the scenes where I saw that. I was like, oh, this is good. Okay, like they spent some money on this for sure. The Sauron symbol, the way that they find it sort of emblazoned on things was really cool. I thought that looked nice. The scene in the second episode with the worm or the sea serpent that attacks them, and the way Galadriel sort of swimming toward the camera, and you see the monster attacking them behind. Thought that scene looked great. I really liked it, and I really liked that the way they handled all of that. You know, like she's swimming in the water, and she's got clothing that's clinging to her, but they didn't make it sort of lascivious or anything like that. They treated it very respectfully, and I like that. I like the orcs in this. We see an orc in the second episode. Looks great. And it's a real orc, unlike the Hobbit movies where they use CGI for the orcs. This, much like they did in the original trilogy of Lord of the Rings, there's a real actor and real, prosthetics and makeup, and it looks great. Honestly, it looks amazing. He comes out with this skull on top of his head initially, and it's terrifying. And the way they filmed it, it's like a horror movie, basically. They show his hands, and they show Bronwyn is sitting there in the closet, and she's terrified, and that scene was great. The way that she's like sitting there in the closet, and I felt the tension and the pressure. And then you see the bottle start to sort of slide down that shelf, and then she catches it at the last second. Oh, it was great. I loved that scene. So overall, yeah, really liked it. I thought it was really good. As far as what I didn't like about it, the sound mixing was pretty bad for me. I think, especially, I was trying to watch the first episode last night, and I was, I didn't want to turn it up too loud because it was late at night, but I would have to sit there and turn it down for the music and then turn it back up for the dialogue. Again, I love the music, but I wish they would have had it just maybe 10% quiet or brought the dialogue up a little bit. It's also a little tricky because a lot of the people here are speaking with, the sort of Middle Earth accent, which is a vaguely British sort of New Zealand, Australian kind of thing. And so when you've got, actors doing that kind of accent, or if they're dwarves, a Scottish kind of thing, and then they're kind of also talking quietly because it's, they don't need to be yelling. It's a little hard when you've got the accents and the dialogue, and then you've got the music on top of that, trying to sort of decipher what's happening. There was a couple scenes I actually had to rewind because I'm like, what are they saying? Oh, they're saying some strange elven word that I don't understand, and that's why I couldn't figure it out, The CGI, there's a climbing scene early on, and I thought the CGI there looked a little wonky. Not even necessarily bad, just weird. Like it didn't look right to me. It looked kind of fake. And so yeah, I didn't love that part. In the first episode at least, I didn't really care for the Nori character too much, the Hobbit that we see. I did start to like her more toward the second episode, but initially when they would cut to her storyline, I'm like, nah, let's go back to Galadriel or one of the other characters that I find more interesting. Arondir is another character who initially I didn't really care for him. He's starting to get more interesting, but they show him his introduction. He comes in, he's got the hood on, he's got the bow and arrow and everything, and seems similar to like Strider's introduction in Lord of the Rings or Aragorn. And so I'm like, cool. But then like, I don't know, he shows up, he doesn't really do much. He's in love with Bronwyn, which I get it. She's pretty and all, but like, I don't know. Like at first it seemed okay, I've said everything, I've done everything but tell you how I feel, kind of whatever. That's cool. But at some point he comes across as like kind of a simp. It's like, dude, just come on, get to it. Like, what are you doing? I did read somewhere someone theorized that maybe that kid is actually his son, and that's why his ears are covered up. Possible. I think in this world, right, elves and humans aren't supposed to mix or something like that. I think Bronwyn's human, right? See, the Theo character, Bronwyn's son, didn't really care for him too much. I understand why he has to be there. He's the one who finds the sword handle, which is maybe a Morgul blade. I'm not sure. But obviously you find a little sword, and he tends to find stuff in holes or put holes in the floor. But you find a sword that like looks cool. All right, cool. But then like your blood starts getting drawn toward it and it lights up. Like maybe you just leave that at home, dude. Maybe you don't need that. Like I don't know. There's also an elevator scene with Elrond and Durin that I thought the CGI in that scene was not great. It was a little off there. But overall, I really loved all the scenes with Elrond and Durin. I think I forgot to mention that in the parts that I liked. But that entire interaction with him where they first show up to try to get in and they get denied, and then he challenges them, and then he loses the challenge. And then she sort of talks about how, I haven't seen you in 20 years. I've gotten married. I've had kids since then. And the elf's just like, oh, it's only been 20 years. But to him, 20 years is nothing. To the dwarf, 20 years is, a significant time, the majority of his life, I think. Or I think he said he'd known him for 50 years. But yeah, that whole scene, the way I liked it, some people may have interpreted that as some kind of homoerotic feelings or something. I didn't get it that way. I got it more as just, friendship. It's kind of thing that Tolkien represented a lot. Samwise and Frodo had kind of a similar kind of relationship. And their relationship reminded me a lot of the relationship of Gimli and Legolas in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So other than that, as you may have realized here as I'm talking, I like Lord of the Rings. I read the books 20 years ago. I read The Hobbit. I've never read the Silmarillion. I've never read any of the supplemental stuff. And I don't care that much. Like, it's cool. I like it. I appreciate it and respect it. But I'm not that invested. I'm not one of these people who's going to get super upset because something doesn't match up. Because honestly, a lot of the stuff that Tolkien wrote doesn't actually match up either. So, pick your battles is what I'm saying here. Other than that, the first two episodes, I believe, were both directed by J.A. Bayona. He is known for directing some movies like The Orphanage, The Impossible with Tom Holland, his first movie, I think, Monster Calls, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I like J. Bayona for the most part. I thought Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was probably my least favorite of his movies, but the rest, I enjoyed them. I think he's a talented director, and I really liked the way that this was filmed and directed. Like I said, it reminded me a lot of Peter Jackson because it had that same sort of cinematography and feel, but it also, reminded me, well, he also has the same kind of horror stuff that Peter Jackson had with, Frighteners and Dead Alive and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, overall, I was really impressed by the direction in this. The showrunners for the show are a couple guys named Patrick McKay and John D. Payne. I looked them up. Apparently, they both have the exact same credits, so I assume they work together a lot. It looks like they both had uncredited rights on Star Trek Beyond, and they're working on a new Flash Gordon TV show or movie, I think, that has not come out yet. Bear McCreary is the guy who did the score for this. Like I said, other than the Howard Shore main theme, Bear McCreary is always good. He works so much. I can't believe he's able to create all these different kinds of music and stuff. But yeah, great. Always good. Good for him. He did a great job. Like I said, they filmed it in New Zealand and I believe the UK as well. But it clearly looks like New Zealand. It clearly has that Hobbit feel. And so that's one thing that I think is a little interesting because I'm watching it and going like, well, that woman doesn't really look like Galadriel. She looks different. And that guy doesn't really look like Elrond. He looks more like Michael Shannon or something than Hugo Weaving. Then I realized, oh, no, wait, this is not in the same world. This is not connected to the New Line Cinema Lord of the Rings movies. But then It looks like them. It's filmed the same way. It's also in New Zealand, and I get New Zealand is Middle Earth now, and that's fine. But when you use New Zealand and you use Howard Shore and you use the same sort of style of cinematography, it seems like, I don't know, is it? Are they trying to have their cake and eat it too? You know, I guess I'm glad that it still seems like the Lord of the Rings, but I don't know. I guess I'm just a little confused as to where it, falls within the canon or whatever. This apparently takes place thousands of years before the Lord of the Rings takes place. So this is in the Second Age as opposed to the Third Age. The hobbits that we see in here are actually the Harfoot breed of hobbits. There's 3 different hobbit breeds. There's Harfoots, Fallowhide, and Stour. So it seems like as far as hobbit breeds go, they're all kind of mixed together and everything. And of course, if you know more about this than I do, feel free to let me know in the comments below. From what I understand, though, the Harfoot breed are more nomadic. And so they travel around more, whereas opposed to the Fallowhide hobbits that we saw in the Third Age were more sedentary. I don't know. They didn't move around as much. So from what I understand, Bilbo, Frodo, Pippin, and Merry have Fallowhide blood through the Old Took. But then I've also heard that Merry may have some Stour blood. And it sounds like Smeagol may have some Stour blood, although that is contradictory there. And I'm not exactly sure about Samwise, what he is. He seems like he could be a Harfoot, or maybe he's a Fallowhide. Like I said, though, it seems they're all somewhat mixed. So, yeah, okay. And so that's why maybe these hobbits are a little different than the hobbits we saw before. They are different. It's a couple thousand years before, and their culture is a little different. This is apparently the most expensive show in history, which I believe it. It makes sense. It looks very, very expensive. They say they spent they're going to spend about $1 billion, I think, on the first season, and they spent $250 million just to get the rights to this stuff. Like I said, from what I understand, they actually don't have the rights to the Silmarillion because that wasn't finished while J.R.R. Tolkien was still alive, and his son Christopher ended up finishing it. So I believe this deal was just for the Lord of the Rings supplementary material, from what I understand. It's going to be 8 episodes this season, and they're planning on doing at least 5 seasons. At some point, Peter Jackson, I guess, offered to sort of give some input on the scripts, and they sort of turned him down. I think some people are taking that as an offensive thing. I think it was more just like a, hey, no, we kind of want to do our own thing kind of thing. And famously, Christopher Tolkien did not like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies. He thought they were like movies made for teenage boys. So maybe he would like this. This show is a bit more of a slow burn, is what I've heard people say. I'm the first person to call stuff out for being boring, but I did not really find this that boring. Yeah, I guess we don't really know who the antagonist is, and it's a lot of setup right now, but I like the world. I like seeing, these creatures, these people out in this world that's an interesting place to be, and I like seeing where it's going. I like not really knowing what's going on. It sounds like Morgoth is going to be involved. He's a big deal in the Silmarillion. A lot of people are curious to see him, and they sort of show him. I guess he's the one who destroyed the trees that provided light at the beginning, because in Lord of the Rings, the Earth was flat initially. I don't know, that's the whole thing. Like I said, I'm curious to know who the stranger is, the guy at the end. So the first episode ends with this guy, like a shooting star crashes down into this crater, and effective ending, a good cliffhanger. And so, of course, we're left wondering, who is that person? There's sort of maybe hinting that it could be Gandalf, or at least that's what a lot of people are thinking. Others have theorized that it could be Sauron, or maybe just another wizard. Or maybe even like Eru Ilúvatar, who is their great god, I think. Again, I'm not an expert on this. So yeah, it could be interesting. I'm curious to know where it's going to go. I think if it's Gandalf, that's cool. It sounds like some people might be a little upset by that. I think he didn't appear till the Third Age. If it is Sauron, that could be cool too. We definitely need to get him in here. So I'm curious to know who this guy is and what his deal is. I want to know who the guy was at the end of the second episode, where we see Galadriel kind of wakes up and sees a guy. You can't see who he is because the sun is behind him. I don't know who that guy is, but it sounds like they're going to Numenor. So I assume maybe that's an elven prince, king, leader of some kind. I'm not sure. This is the show where, at least when I checked the Rotten Tomatoes score, there's a big difference between the critics and the audience. In this case, the critics seem to like it at 84%, and the audience is down at 37%. So in this case, it seems like there are a lot of people, saying that critics are shills, that they're getting paid, all of this stuff. I mean, I tell you, I am not getting paid. I only have 38 subscribers, so they're not interested in me. yeah, I think there are some people who were upset about the show, and I had heard that, and I sort of assumed that a lot of the people were upset because they put some characters of color in there, and people are like, well, elves shouldn't, should only be white or whatever, or the dwarves not having beards, which actually I really like the woman who played Durin's wife, and maybe it would have been cool with a beard, but she did have a little bit of some like kind of sideburn stuff going on there. So maybe it's that. I think there's a lot of people too who are just upset because it's not what they wanted. It's not what they imagined. They're hardcore Tolkien fans. They've read the books and they've poured through it and they've imagined what they think it would look like. And it's not meeting that. And I think some people wanted the Silmarillion adapted without understanding that Amazon does not have the rights to do that. So they can't, even if they wanted to. And then the other thing to me is Tolkien is not sacred. Lord of the Rings is not. He's just a dude. He's a good writer and he came up with some cool languages and stuff, but like it's not. And I mean, like I like the movies, they're good, but they're not perfect. There's some goofy, cringy stuff in there. Like when Legolas like surfs down the banner on his shield, like come on, what is that? Some like X Games kind of stuff, or even like the running count they have between their kills. It's funny and I get it, but I don't really think it's in the spirit of the original books. Although there's something kind of like that in the books, but I don't know. So it's kind of funny to me when something like this happens, where it's something I'm casually into, So when people get upset, I don't care. But like that being said, I'm really into comic books. So I'm the kind of person who got upset when they had Batman shooting guns because I'm like, no, Batman doesn't use guns. That's like a big part of his history and everything behind it. And other people going, whatever, it was cool. It was a cool scene. So I get to see what it's like on the other side now, or like when a Star Trek movie comes out or Star Wars. And I'm like, I thought it was fine. It was okay. And people who are hardcore fans are upset because, they feel like they've been offended. So in this case, I think it's just, it's not a big deal. It's literally one of the least important things in the entire world. And if this is something you're that upset about, I don't know, pick your battles, man. Find a hobby, figure something else out. There are far more things in the world you should be upset about than the adaptation of the appendices of Lord of the Rings. I mean, and if that's all you have to be upset about, your life is going pretty good. You should be happy. So, other than that, a lot of people are comparing it to House of the Dragons. I've not watched that show yet. I'm still bitter and salty about the way that Game of Thrones ended. There's a saying in Texas. I don't know if they have it in Tennessee, but fool me once, won't get fooled again, basically. So I don't know. I've heard it's good. People seem to like it. I think maybe I'll wait at least till the season ends before I try to check it out because, I don't know. I don't know. At this point, I feel like when people start telling me about House of the Dragon and how they like it, it's like talking to someone who just got out of an abusive relationship. And you're like, what are you doing? Why are you going back? And they're like, no, it's different now. They've changed. And I'm like, they haven't changed. Don't trust them. So I don't know. Maybe it's not that bad. But I really like this show. I was surprised by the people who didn't like it. And so far, I haven't really seen a lot of good arguments for why they didn't like it, other than it's not what I wanted, or maybe because there's women in lead roles and some guys just really cannot handle that. It's not a big deal, man. As far as my score, though, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was really good. I liked the second episode better than the first episode, but overall, I went into this not expecting much and honestly, not even really too excited about it, and it's been long enough and the Hobbit movies weren't that good anyway, but yeah, I was surprised by how much I really liked this show and I'm really looking forward to it. So if you watched the show, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night and I will see you here again next week.